It's 5 o'clock and we're ready to start the meeting, the March meeting for the Planning and Zoning Board. As always, we ask you to join us in prayer, and I've asked Cisco to lead us in prayer today.
Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for this beautiful day in which you bless us with. We thank you for the breath that you give us in our lungs for another day. Lord, we ask for your guidance and your blessings, Lord, and your favor on our city, on its leaders, Lord, and on its citizens. Give this board the guidance and wisdom to lead and to the way that you would have it to be done. We ask all these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. We have a short agenda tonight, and Adam, are there any changes to the agenda that we received?
No changes.
Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as printed?
Motion.
We have a motion by Billy Barnfield.
Second.
Second by Jeff Parnell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Everybody should have received a copy of the minutes from the February meeting. And are there any changes or adjustments to the minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of the minutes as written?
So move.
Who is that? Mayor Tenen moves for acceptance. A second?
Second.
Second by Jeff Parnell. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. We set aside this time of the meeting for public forum. If anybody wishes to address the board, you can come to the front and state your name and address and your business. We do ask you to keep it to 3 minutes. And is there anybody here who wishes to talk to the board? Seeing no one raise their hand, do I have a motion to close the public forum?
So move.
So moved by Cisco. A second?
Second.
Second by Billy Barnfield. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Forum is closed. Okay. Item number 4. Duncan Rowe requests a 6-month extension on the fire hydrant installation requirement at 214 Hasty Drive. Anybody here representing this item? Our policy is that we don't just rule on this unless somebody's present. Is that correct?
Yes, and they sent me this request in, so either, we can still take action however we want, or we could defer it.
Well, it
so.
seems, well, why don't you go ahead and talk on this, and we'll discuss it further.
All right. Remember last September, there was a request for a variance from a fire hydrant requirement at the end of Hasty Drive. As you on the left up here, they subdivided the 24-acre property that's into Tabor and Hasty a couple of years ago, and they created a 4-acre lot in the back, and they've since built a house on that lot, and they kept the remaining 20 acres for another house. Nothing built at this point. There's the red dot show where the house is now, the future house. Our subdivision regulations require 500 feet of all lots, and that was part of the subdivision plat. The hydrant will be required. It's a little tricky, this one, because Metro Water is actually the water provider. It's not the city of Goodlettsville, but so they built the house, and we were working with them on the hydrant and some financial issues, and they agreed to do it, but they just requested for additional time. But last year they requested a variance. The board said no, gave them 6 months to do it. So their 6 months is coming up pretty soon, and they put in your all's packet. They're trying to sell some properties to fund some different things, and one of the things would be the hydrants. They've asked for 6 more months. So I'll put it back on the agenda for review of additional 6 months, what they've requested.
If we vote to deny this request, what happens?
The process next, and we talked about it back in September, I will go through our legal process and notice, court citation, begin fines.
Is this a hefty fine, or do you know?
That would accumulate. It could be daily accumulation of fines, so it could add up pretty quick. Our judge, per her determination, can do $50 a day per violation, and every day, once we go to the city court route, the judge can fine $50 a day, and it can go forward until the hydrant's installed. So, Russell, I think, had a comment on it.
Have they applied for a building permit yet? Have they got a structure there already?
Yes.
Yeah, they do. On the, I was trying to, Okay, it's just not shown on the map,
Yeah,
but the other structure has not been built.
that's not been built, that's
Okay,
correct.
That's what I was concerned about.
Their goal was to kind of time those together, but it sounds like per their letter, they explained that. That's been delayed, so.
Well, they've been living in this house for over a year, is that correct?
Not a year, probably last fall.
So how far away are they from a hydrant now with that house that's been built?
It's about 680 feet.
Okay.
And that was the request last month. They said how close it was. That's why they requested variance, but the board said no. And the board said no, two reasons. One, not just because their house, but also the future house on top of the hill. That was where we felt it's needed for both of us, so.
And I have the two houses at the end, that are already existing, there's lots that are shown borders of white. Does those house structures predate our ordinance?
Yeah, those homes were built 70s, 60s, 70s, yeah. There is a hydrant in there, thank goodness. You know, a lot of old neighborhoods, there's not one. There is one there at the intersection of Tabor and Hasty. It's just,
Have they applied for anything on that second house yet?
they haven't.
Those two houses that were just mentioned, those are within that 500-foot hydrant, are they not?
I would say so, yeah. If that's
Both
if that's 680 from that hydrant to the house, if they're not, they're within probably 50 feet of it, so.
That's why I was thinking they may not make the 500, but they were pre-built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, our current subdivision regulations for the mid-2000s, so.
So they're just asking for 6 more months?
According to the letter, they explain why, but that's what they're asking, more time. They're trying to, I understand, sell another piece of property, be able to use the funds to do this, so.
So if we defer it, that gives them 7 months, but what if they don't come next month?
Then I'll start
Then you'll
our
then?
process, yeah.
So we can basically defer it and give them a month and then talk to them about the extension next month if you wanted to, right?
That's up to you guys, yeah. Or make some decision next month regardless.
Yes,
I mean, even if
but
they don't
I'm a-
show up, y'all can vote.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to defer, and if they don't show up, then we'll take action at that point.
We have a motion to defer for 1 month?
Yeah, till next month.
For
Yes,
1
sir.
month. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by, motion to defer was by Mayor Tannen, second is by Billy Barnfield. Any discussion? I would like to add one thing. I agree with the motions, but I would like to let it be known that if and when we do give another extension, next month they come by and we decide to give them another extension, that will be the limit. And,
Yeah, because in September, we talked about 6 months to a year. That was the kind of the timelines we originally
So,
talked about, so.
so if they don't meet the deadline we give them next month, and I think we ought to say enough's enough.
Okay.
So we do have a motion, we do have a second. Any further comments? All those,
Chairman, my comment would be that, will you contact them to request that they be here at the next? Because, I mean, if they don't appear the next time, then,
I'm going to tell them we're going to make a decision next
Right.
time. If they're not
They need-
here, it's probably not going to be in their favor, so.
I think this is the second time that they haven't shown up.
Maybe last year, I can't remember.
okay, we'll defer it for, the motion is to defer for 1 month. We've had comments. All those in favor of deferring for 1 month, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Defers unanimously. Excuse me. Item number 5, request for recommendation to the City Commission to rezone 29.4 acres from CSL Commercial Service Limited to RCI Regional Center High Intensity at 1000 Rivergate Parkway. And this is for approval for 185,500 square foot mixed-use commercial and 427 residential units. Is anybody here to represent this item? If you'll come forward and let us know your name and
And Scott, what I'm going to let them do, or Commissioner, I'm sorry, True, I'm going to let them start, and because a lot of the slides were the same, so I'm going to let them, instead of me starting the presentation, let them start.
okay, so if you'll state your name and
Sure. I'm Kate Jarash, Maris LLC, formerly Al Nair. Happy to be in front of the commission again. We saw you over the summer for the first phase of this project and are happy to be back.
Hi, I'm Hunter G., Principal at Smith G. Studio Architects and Urban Planners. Thanks for having us tonight.
okay. And if you would still go ahead and tell us about this project.
Sure. Next slide. We showed you the pretty picture first. As you can see on the screen, this is the portion of the site that falls within the Goodlettsville city boundaries. The shape to the left side is the first phase that we went through the boards over the summer and have preliminary approved. And the blue portion is what you have for consideration this evening. The white portion to the bottom there is the portion that is in Metro, along with the amount that is Dillard's that is not under our control. Next slide, please. As if we didn't know where Rivergate Mall was and what it looks like today, there she sits, and that is the dividing line between Goodlettsville and Metro. This is our first stop on our tour of commissions and boards. We will be going to Metro next week. Next slide. As I just shared with you, that the phase one is to the left, Metro is to the right, and the blue portion in the middle is for consideration this evening. And you had already mentioned the number of units, bulk standards that we are looking for. Next slide. This is one of our views of what we are proposing. Green space is definitely something that we have as part of this project, much as we did in the first phase, along with similar types of buildings, commercial mix, residential mix, uses that are truly a lifestyle center. Next slide. Another view is if you're walking. Next slide. Wanted to give you a little bit of the character, since we are asking you to approve the bulk instead of footprints this evening. It should look very similar to what you saw last year with our phase one. A lot of the same character, a lot of the same materials. Next slide. You can kind of roll through them. That was residential. This is the commercial. We are keeping with the same height as we had in phase one, and looking for a good mix of food and beverage, retail, and services. One addition that we are looking to add to the uses that we did not have in phase one is a sports and entertainment center, something that we can bring the family to, that is going to bring folks to Goodlettsville, bring folks to the site, and really activate it in a good way. And there is what is up for consideration this evening again. So I'll open up for questions.
All right. Oh, you let me go ahead and. All right, so this is a little different than the last one. They request a little flexibility on the layout. As you can see, it does have the interior roadway set. So what we're kind of looking at tonight is the preliminary master plan, like a conceptual layout for the zoning. There are some guidelines on the left. You see what kind of some of the uses defined, the number of residential defined. On the right would be your setbacks for the buildings, the heights. So the concept plan does have guidance with it. On those formats, what the plan's shown as. Roadway network, of course, Rivergate Parkway, Conference Drive, those are public streets. Gallatin Road here on the south side. Rivergate Parkway is a private drive, but it is a main road that's already there. So their goal is to build interior roadways. I know it's kind of hard to see on this, and it really ties in with, there's a road here, but where the metro kicks out. And that was the picture they showed, like the rendering with the open space. So we'll have multiple connections, multiple roads. Met with Metro Planning and Public Works staff. I explained to them that we requested a traffic summary up front, not the full study. We did one similar to one when we did the Macy's, and I'll show you the second one they did for the rest of it. This area handles a tremendous amount of traffic. It's got a lot of connections, a lot of signals, but there could possibly be some signal improvements, some intersection improvements, and that'd be one of my stipulation items. If this does go forward, we will require a formal traffic study. So one good thing about this location, like I said, it has a great connection, multiple ways in and out. to 3 major roadways, Rivergate Parkway, Conference Drive, and Gallatin Road. In the packet, we did it's called a traffic summary. And they basically did I've put in your all's packet the full summary, but the conclusion was they feel like really the traffic from this could be similar to or less than what the mall's heyday. Of course, this is a phased-in project that'll last, take several years to complete. But we will request a full traffic study if this goes forward to look at those intersection improvements and any kind of signal changes. Or then Metro also, they will, part of their traffic study process, which we'll look at for the whole thing, will be sidewalk connections, any kind of bike lanes and things like that. Staff stipulations, one, this is kind of a concept drawing. They do show some renderings, but I just want to make a note, if it goes forward, they will have to comply with their commercial design standards. We get and talk about the materials. And then on the final master plan, would be the next step, they would show the defined building locations. I think there's still some up in the air about where that'd be at this point. Number 2, if the preliminary master plan is approved, the full traffic study, like we talked about, will be required, and that will require coordination of Metro Planning and Public Works for any traffic signalization, intersection improvements, and pedestrian bike connections. Metro Nashville, I'm right, Tim, they basically do the signal timing at Rivergate Parkway, even within the Goodlettsville city limits. So that's something, that's why we talked about coordination with them. Number 3, parking. With it being a mixed use, I've seen these mixed use projects, you want to have designated parking for the residents. That way they have an area they know they can count on. Hopefully these businesses will be hugely successful. The sports place will be successful, but you still want to have the residents a place guaranteed to park. So one thing going forward, we do the final, make sure that those parking reserve kind of set aside for them. We will need to include some type of visitor parking for the senior housing and the townhome persons. The apartments, the way we do those, the parking is usually based on a large facility, and there's a lot of fluctuation. Some people, have 1 car, some have 3. So generally, there's a lot more parking available in those versus a townhome and senior, where it's very tight. We want to make sure we have visitors for those. They would have to comply with our townhouse garage requirement at minimum 22 feet. They requested a narrow width, but I know that's something the board put a lot of time in on those minimum garage widths to make sure those garages usable for the parking available on site will be available. So when we do the final master plan, we'll just make sure we got all the parking requirements. I know at this point they do a number, but we want to kind of see how they're set aside. So that's the stipulations. Motion options: 1, recommend approval to the City Commission to rezone the property to RC1 Regional Center Planning and Development and the preliminary master plan, as we discussed, with those staff stipulations. And the motion to approve would be based on this layout and proposal being consistent with our comprehensive plan. The city in 2020 did a comprehensive plan amendment really to make this a mixed-use center. We based on Metro's Nashville Next project, what they show. And really, I know when we did the Macy's project, we were thrilled to see that. And, the guy was, it'd be neat to see the whole mall go this way. So it's really fortunate, in my opinion, that we're getting to see it as a whole redevelopment, because that was kind of our original thought when we did the comprehensive plan for this. But we could recommend denial, the City Commission, if we feel like prefer to remain this as a commercial services existing zoning, or defer if there's any additional information y'all would like to see.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I add something to
You may.
Adam's comments? And I'll be very short and brief because it's not a staff update, but January 2020, Macy's closed, and that was the first domino that fell in this whole piece. I made the comment to the news media that it wasn't that Dillard's closing was a travesty. It was the fact it's providing us an opportunity. And 5 years later, the opportunity is here, because this project is as transformational to the city of Goodlettsville as any project we'll probably ever see. We'll probably have not seen anything like this that impact our impacted us locally since Dollar General built their headquarters here. These guys have been wonderful to work with. I know it's got a long ways to go, and they have been totally forthcoming with everything. We have met with them along with Metro Planning. That was entertaining. But I would encourage your sincere consideration to this.
Okay, I'll open up to the board for any questions or comments.
Mr. Chairman?
Do we have a motion, do we have a motion yet?
No, we haven't addressed, the board has not asked them any questions,
Discuss,
discussion items.
discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, Mr. Burke?
So, Adam, on the retail restaurant, 30,000 square feet, is that not low, one parking for 250 square feet? I've got a 12,000 square foot building with 111 parking spaces, and they're fighting for parking as it is now.
What we do, if it's part of like a shopping center, that's the ratio we use. You know, because shopping center, you can have fluctuation of uses, some of them higher, some of them lower. If the restaurant's successful, yeah, I mean, I always tell people to do as many as you can, but this is our requirement for a shopping center.
Is that normal from what you guys see?
I mean, and I'll let Hunter actually take this one after I do. You know, we did the same ratio when it came to you for phase one, because we don't know exactly who is going to be in these spaces, but obviously parking is going to be key, and we'll make sure that everybody's successful and has what they need.
It's going to be tight, I can tell you, because I've got a cafe, a nail salon, Hot Works, and a Edward Jones, which doesn't have a lot of people, and I'm having to play parking police with all of them right now.
And the thing about restaurants, it really depends how much staff they got, because if that takes up, 15, 20 parking places.
30 in my case, for a small restaurant. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you guys for coming in. Just a couple questions. One, the parking, the consideration. Will there be any garage parking? And when I say that, like level parking for like the apartments, or everything's ground level?
Everything is surface park. There will be garages with the townhouses.
Okay, all right. And then second question is, if you know this, because I know this is preliminary, but of the commercial buildings, do we know the percentage of what would be, I call it taxpayer unit? Do we know what that would be, like retail, apartments above? Is there, because I know there's.
They're not mixed. So
Okay.
all the residential is first floor and above.
Okay.
And then the commercial is completely separate. We
Okay.
didn't do any sort of mixtures.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I noticed in your packet you requested one, or the garage to be 20 by 22 instead of 22 by 22. Does that pose a problem?
Go ahead.
No, sir. We've actually been seeing in this market even smaller, narrower garages than that, but we're comfortable with the 20-foot wide garages, and have
You mean,
found that.
is it 20 foot or 22 foot?
For that reason, we had asked for the accommodation it was a minimum of 22, or a minimum of 20 versus the 22. I mean, obviously, if it's something, once that developer comes through, we may be coming back to you with, they may be coming back to you at final to make that change. God forbid, I mean, I don't think they will. I think they can accommodate it, but that may, we were trying to give as much flexibility as possible.
A lot of our townhouse projects we've seen, they don't necessarily do a two-car, on the newer ones, but that's what we talk about. If it is a two-car, it need to be that 22. If it's just like a big one car, they got enough parking elsewhere for it, then it would be fine. It's just if it's being shown as a two-car garage, that's our minimum dimension for that, so.
So if right now you want us to stipulate 22 as.
That would be, because I know that's something we've enforced on different people that didn't like it, so I would say we maintain that.
Mr.
but-
Chairman, every single developer that comes in here is going to complain about that, every single one of them. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to tell every single one of them that they need to make it 22 by 22.
If it's going to be a two-car. If it's going to be a one-car and they'll have parking shown they can make it elsewhere, then
Okay.
But on that extra 2 foot, Would that, like Mr. Barnfield's talking about, wouldn't that help us in some of them areas to get us that extra parking?
That's the hope. I mean, you still can't make people park in the garage, of course,
Sure.
but that's the goal, to do a bigger car interior dimension. Because we, over at one of our townhouse communities, it wasn't the vehicles the problem, it was the trash carts. They don't really have a lot of room for the see trash carts. You know, we do 2, recycling and trash. And they put those in there, it would make it hard to park. So that's what and then trying to encourage more parking inside is why we went with a bigger interior dimension.
I bet if there's no parking outside, they'd squeeze a second car in there.
Yeah.
I think that giving up that 2 foot might cost us more problem outside. I just really hate to give up the 2 foot.
And you all could have it where at the final master plan, we could review the individual designs. I mean,
I think we need to know, because or let the builders know that I don't think there's any coming back with the 18. I think that'd be off the table.
unless it's a one car, yeah.
Right.
Right, yeah. And if that is the board's stipulation, that is what we will tell them.
Any other comments or questions?
I guess I don't even know who this question is to, except whoever might know the answer. So I guess, is the Dillard's staying in place and the Sears, what's happening with I guess the Sears is getting demoed as part of this project?
Yes, Dillard's will be staying.
Dillard's will be staying.
Yes.
So are they, I'm sorry, I can't tell looking at this. Is it going to be kind of integrated, or is it just going to start being a standalone building?
So it will be a standalone building, but it will have an entrance on what was the mall entrance today. We'll have an improved entrance facing into the community.
Okay. Are there any sketches of that? Okay.
We haven't gotten to that point.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's not in our city limits anyway.
Fair.
Anybody else? Okay, so we are looking for a motion. And if we move to approve, there needs to be stipulations mentioned.
Mr. Chairman,
So at this time, I'm looking for a motion.
may I ask one more?
Yes, you can ask another question.
Adam, so basically what we're being asked to do tonight is to recommend a rezone based on these percentages. And that's really what we're approving, these percentages and these design guidelines.
And the kind of the layout with interior roadway system.
Okay,
So we're basically, it's a preliminary master plan, we just don't have the concrete location of the building yet.
which means when those are done, we're going to see it again and have to reapprove. We're just giving them a baseline from which to work.
For the rezoning, yeah. If this gets approved, goes to the city commission, then we'll do a final master plan next here. And that's your basically your site level drawing. That's engineered construction plans, so.
Okay. And
But that generally sets a threshold kind of, if it comes back 520 apartments, that have to be something reviewed again. But that kind of sets a threshold what they felt like. That RC1 allows 40 units an acre. That'd have been almost 1,200 lots, units, so way under the residential threshold that would be permitted. But I think they tried to, maximize as much residential they can do. Of course, you think about it, this is 3 parts. The mall, where the Macy's was, this, and then the metro area.
yeah,
But that's what we're looking at doing, the master plan for the zoning, but we kind of set like the parameters for the square footages. They felt like they're going to be able to fit in. It's just they don't know the exact locations of them yet.
okay. One of the slides showed the stories from 1 to 7.
Yes.
And of course, I'm in favor of the 7, but if I'm trying to figure out where the ones would be. And the only thing I can think of is restaurants, maybe, standalone restaurant pads. Is that what
Yes,
that is?
the one is the commercial, yes.
Is the commercial, okay. So we don't
Yeah.
want to say restaurant because we want to keep it open to retail, okay. But those pads, we don't know where they're going to be yet. We just know there's going to be somewhere, maybe a retail pad that maybe a restaurant might go on to possibly.
Yes, we also heard you loud and clear when we came through on phase one, in the right location that you felt for those commercial areas with where, in relation to where the residential was. So we have leaned in on the commercial on this as well.
Okay, everything else is 2 stories plus. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion?
And the renderings really kind of help on the height, oops. It's locked up. You can see those are typically 4-story with some of the lower levels mixed in. And the goal was, even on the 1-stories, have taller, wall fronts to kind of give that look that you're going towards the streetscape look, so. But there could be portions of building, showing another hotel, that could possibly be a higher story.
I might also point out in those images, the photography of the one-story commercial buildings. Each one of those is a more integrated into kind of a walkable place where, as opposed to kind of your typical sort of standalone out parcel. So the intent here is to really, even if we do have single paths for commercial, that it would be integrated and connected where people can park once and walk to several different things throughout the neighborhood.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
With stipulations?
With the stipulations as presented by staff.
Okay. We have a motion to approve with the staff stipulations mentioned. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who said second? Cisco seconded the motion. You gotta be quicker. Any further comments or? Hearing none, all those in favor for approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. This is exciting. And you say you'll be open by June, is that correct?
You didn't specify the year. No, thank you. We really appreciate you and working with us on this, and we are very excited to bring this to Goodlettsville. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are now ready for discussion items, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, I'll leave that up to you.
All right, one quick thing, it's not really a discussion night, but the comprehensive plan, we're kicking that off, that review, starting March 24th, 6 o'clock. Had a survey, been out for a couple of weeks now. I think we're over the 600 results range, so we got good results. So that first meeting on the 24th, that's a Monday, at 6 o'clock here in this building. It'll be one to talk about the purpose of the plan, go through those survey results, and the consultant we've used, we've hired to kind of assist us with it. He's putting together a presentation to talk about like different scenarios we can look at. That'll be the kickoff one. Then we'll try to have one next couple of months, a second one, before we really get into the plan development. So encourage anybody interested in that on March 24th at 6 o'clock. Next thing to talk about, the moratorium the City Commission adopted in December. 2 parts. One for the comprehensive plan. They wanted us to review that. Not just for high density, but for the whole city, but high density will be a part of that. And then 2 was to look at our current requirements for residential, high density, and all residential planning developments. There's been questions about the materials on the building, the garage orientation, things like that. We've seen projects come in, and the planning commission, we kind of have different expectations more than what our current ordinance is. So that's what we looked at possible scenarios to do amendments. So I'll go through these things. The goals of tonight's discussion, anything you all feel, comments on it will help me put the ordinances together that we'll be actually bringing in the next couple months. So number one, go through these quick. Review the permitted uses in our different, and densities in our different residential districts. The bottom of the thing, there's a chart that shows what uses are permitted per what zoning district. I know the commission's talked about in certain areas of the city looking for more low density. Right now, our low density planned unit development, it's like 1.7 units an acre. That zoning district allows both 1 and 2 family attached. Looking at certain uses, would they be permitted there or not? That'd be a question there. Do we want the opportunity in the low density to have 2 unit attached units rather than to be all detached single family? I would think that'd be maybe something we want to look at removing that from that. Our R15 zoning, that's a base zone district. It allows the duplexes also. So definitely that'd be a thing to look at in that location. Keep those more your single family. Also in our medium density planned unit development district, which we have several zones, it allows attached townhomes. The medium density goes up to 3 units an acre, so it not fall under our definition of high density, but just kind of want to put everything out there when we're looking at this, because the last thing we did is about 3 years ago, we looked at our planning development design requirements, so I feel like there's some discrepancies with that now, so I just want to make sure whatever we feel comfortable with, we identify that in the ordinance. Our high-density residential planning development, right now, it allows anywhere from more than 3 to 15 units an acre. We have different locations where we can go up to the 15 if it's on a major highway, mixed-use kind of setting. There is provision right now for senior high-rise at 25 units an acre. We don't have that in the city, but it is in our ordinance. The regional center planning development, that's the mall area, like we just saw earlier, that allows up to 40 units an acre. The RC2, which is the area around the mall, allows 25 units an acre. Our commercial core overlay, which the city established probably over a decade now, it allows 40 units an acre, multi-level. Commercial ground floor, full ground floor commercial on those with the residential above. A couple years ago, we did a North Main Street overlay, kind of similar to the commercial core overlay, but it's 15 units an acre. And then we did just, 6 months ago, a residential limited planning development for certain locations, like infill type developments, we allowed up to 7 units an acre. So I bring these up just thinking, are there certain uses we don't feel comfortable with going forward in certain districts? And do we want to look at those densities to pull some of those densities back in those different districts?
Hey, Adam, tell me the difference between attached townhomes and 2 family detached.
All right, townhomes, they can be anywhere from 4 to 6 buildings together. A 2-unit attached is going to be like a duplex. It's 2 detached from 2 more.
And there's not that many duplexes being built anymore, is that correct?
They're not common. You see them in, like, where somebody has a piece of property, we see a lot of requests for it, where somebody has a bigger piece of property that we've zoned, R15. We zoned it in the 80s, but it was a 40,000 square foot lot, used to have a single house on it. We see duplexes in those kind of settings.
But I haven't seen
it's
one in
limited.
a long time come through the board.
The last one's Altaloma, that area we rezoned back in 16 for they tore down a house and built a duplex. It's not a very lot. People either want to do single family or they want to do attached with new projects. Willis Branch in that area, that Terra, those are 2 family detached, and they're individually owned. So it can be still 1 owner or 2. So that's the example. Going forward in the low density, there's a lot of concern about the low density being a neighborhood if we want to allow those attached products in that.
I guess I don't look at Terra, that area in Terra being a duplex. I know it is, but it doesn't seem like that to me.
Yeah. Well, the design of them, they did a great job. Even though they're attached, they're into each side kind of has some architectural features that make it, that's high-end homes there, so.
Okay.
We'll go through these, and then any kind of question you got, y'all can stop me along the way, anything that kind of stands out to you. Number 2, review minimum living space requirement in residential planning developments. I know this just came up lately with the project on Long Haul Pike. Right now in the planning development, we don't have a minimum square footage. We're kind of odd here in our R15 and R40 base districts, we do. And it ranges from 1,000 to 1,500 square foot living space. But in our planning developments, we don't. Of course, planning development's all master plans. So they're trying to sell you all a project they're proposing. So there was never a minimum because I guess it kind of took care of itself. If they were going to do small stuff, it wouldn't get approved. But right now, we don't have that. I feel like if it's something we feel we need, when a plan comes in, I feel like sometimes we've got to negotiate with the developer. But if we have it defined what we're expecting, at least a minimum square footage, that defines a baseline. And these square footages would not include the garages. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So these are just the living space square footages. In our R40, that's right now 1,500 square feet minimum with a 2-car garage. But that's the only areas we have those right now in our base residential districts. Keep going through them right quick. Number 3 is the attached garage or an on-site garage requirement. Like I just said, in our base zone districts, the R7s, R10s, we do 1-car attached garage. And then in our R15s, R40s, we do a 2-car attached requirement. Planning development, we don't have that as a minimum requirement. Again, it's master plan based. So if they come in with a neighborhood without garages, probably slim chance of getting approved. But if that's something we want to define, definitely define. Definitely with a 1 and 2 family, attached townhomes, if we want to require a 1-car on those, and those are kind of common size of garage on those attached. And then the multifamily, I've seen some ordinances where not necessarily every unit has to have a garage either attached to it or, sometimes they have buildings where people can rent on site, but maybe a percentage of the apartments have a garage available. That ensures a little higher level upscale of the apartments to do that. But that's definitely the things I would say. If we want to require that, define those with the expectations that are there. So, garage orientations, which garage orientations on a single-family neighborhood pretty much dictates the size of the lots. It does a lot because that really determines how wide those lots are. Right now, we have a provision where only 33% of front-loaded garages are permitted. This was from a couple years ago. These are in planning developments. Our base zone district don't have anything on those. But front-loaded garages under this, if that garage has to be more than 25% of the width of the house. So if you got a 100-foot wide house and a 20-foot garage, it wouldn't be regulated under this section. That's rare to have a building that wide with a garage that small. That's the way it was defined that way. So if they do have a front-load garage, 33% of them, say like a 100-lot subdivision, right now we would allow 33% of those, 33 of them, to have a front-load garage at some place in the development. The other designs we allow to kind of, because you got to have a garage somehow, is either I call them side-loaded, which you got to have at least probably 95 to 100-foot lot to do side-loaded for a house of any square footage. Courtyard side-loaded, which those are very popular. And you kind of do a smaller lot with those where you have the garage kind of come out from the house, but the door's on the side. It doesn't front the street. They're very popular. Give a lot of room for parking off-site, too, with those. One, you could do a rear-loaded garage, or alley-loaded. Some developments are alley. We don't have any here. Or we can call it a recessed front, where that garage is set back 10 foot back from the front of the house. So it kind of gives a little more area for parking. And it kind of pushes where the garage don't look like it's dominant on the front of the house. I see a lot of developments, they'll do those recessed fronts on like perimeter lots. Have y'all ever seen West Haven down in Franklin? It's absolutely stunning development, alley-loaded product. But on the perimeter, you can't do an alley-loaded on a perimeter. So on those, they're recessed front. I've noticed them in Durham Farms, Hendersonville. There's certain areas where they have those recessed fronts. To me, it does help. It gives more parking available, but it does allow that to happen on a smaller lot. Material requirements. Right now in our planning development, the residential part, we require a minimum 50% brick or stone. That secondary material after that can be cement fiberboard. Well, that's hardy board. Hardy board's a brand of a cement fiberboard. Wood siding, which we don't see a lot of. Glass, of course. And we allow a split face block and EFIS. EFIS is kind of like a stucco product, a little different, but that's very prominent in your hotel kind of construction. But people do like it on the residential construction, give it a flat look of a wall. In our commercial design lines, multifamily residential, planning developments, including the regional center we just saw, it meets our design guidelines. Our design guidelines are a little different. Of course, the 50% brick or stone, the same materials. The only kind of difference is we allow decorative metal in some, commercial settings. On Business Park Circle, where Gentleman Bly built, we added that provision because they want to do a nice aluminum look, which is a really great looking building, but we kind of said we'll allow decorative metal features. Then we have also provisions for industrial. So I know this is something that comes up a lot beyond that 50%. There's expectations for maybe the houses, especially certain neighborhoods it's next to have more brick to be consistent. But if we're going to keep asking for that, I think it'd be good to define that as our minimum expectation going forward.
Adam, I think I brought this up last month, and I've not liked the homes that have 100% siding of some sort on the rear. They'll have brick on the side and the front or stone, whatever, but on the very rear, it's just planks or hardy board or whatever. Is that something we could look at, or I don't know what the answer would be. I don't know.
Yeah, what we have right now in our design guidelines, which is kind of the same deal, the goal is to have it on every wall, but they can do trade-offs. Like if they did more on the front and sides, they can trade off in the back.
Right.
I guess we could not do the trade-offs. I know commercial, that's kind of, sometimes they want the fronts to look, great, and have the same materials on the side and back, but might really focus on the front, the street visibility.
Is there a reason that the multifamily residential is down with the commercial?
Because originally it was, by state law, several years ago, when they did design guidelines, they finally put it in the law, which a lot of cities already had it in place. It did not apply to 1 and 2 family. So a lot of people kind of put that for multifamily. Our design guidelines included. It's really more, because that's considered like a commercial development. And a couple of years ago, we did, in our planning development ordinance, we added the residential materials. And there's kind of some both ways on that. On a residential neighborhood, if we can require brick or stone, the state law basically says we can't do design guidelines. But I've kind of went to conferences, a lot of discussion with land use attorneys in a planning development setting where they're coming in requesting a design, a consistent design, that they think the cities can push design on those more than like somebody has 4 acres out on Patton Branch Road. We really don't have the ability to tell them what their house looks like. But that's why there's a difference, because the design guidelines came first.
So, question on it. So, on a PUD, we can. Somebody has a lot of acres, you really can't. But say there is for example, off Long Hollow Pike, Sumner County side, where there's an empty lot. Could we, at that point?
Depends on what it's on. If it's part of a planning development.
Well, say it was like a R25 or R40, no? What's Loretta Drive?
They're different. In the very back is planning development.
But coming off of Long Hollow Pike.
Yeah, that's R25, R15.
Yeah.
I really think the state law kind of comes in on that, where that's not really, where it's called base zone, where the lots are there. It's more about the lot that we're zoning, because different people can buy them. And ones where it's developer driven, they're going to build similar deals. I just don't, by state law, I don't know if we could really apply it to other zone districts. That's something me and Russell could look at, but I think it's pretty clear on the state law it's not intended for. There's some question about in planning developments. If you remember a couple of years ago, state law came out, and we had to readopt our rules. And we had like 2 weeks, it's a short period of time you had to readopt them, create an appeal process. Because originally when that law came out, they wanted to basically say cities they got to quit this stuff. But I've kind of I always say City of Franklin saves a lot of cities across the state promoting design because, you know, if it wasn't for them, I think we probably couldn't do anything sometimes with our state law. But I just think you start doing it in your base district, you're going to push it where I feel like we really don't have that authority like we do in a planning development, like a master plan type development.
Design guidelines for commercial multifamily residential. If we wanted our multifamily to be 80% brick, would that carry over to the commercial buildings as well, or can they be separated?
We could probably do like a different level, I think, because there's a reason why you could treat apartments different. I think we could justify that if that's something y'all would like to see. Because, you know, Wendy's, they fluctuate over time. Hotels, their design's going to change over time, but really those apartments don't. So I can see why, if the goals have more masonry product on that.
Mm-hmm. So you think we could look at that and have a chance at?
And what I'd probably do is rework it that we kind of lump those under our multifamily, under the residential planning development portion instead. We could figure, if that's what the board would like to see, I think we could justify that. I could come up some way to word it and we could put it in there.
I guess just one more place, I'm just sitting here thinking, but consistent with the cities around us, how does our design plans requirements compare to theirs?
Caesar, I mean, when I go by and see developments, Durham Farms, I mean, you look at that, it's got mixture of materials, but, I know Hendersonville, they said, we had a discussion, they were in the 75 to 80% range on their planning developments. I see some of their commercial buildings, I mean, the new Jeep one, it's got metal facade on it, but it's still an incredible looking building. So I think the residential neighborhoods are a little bit higher masonry requirements, what I've noticed. But other cities, cities are all over the place. If you drive around and see some of these neighborhoods, it really depends on how the approval process was. I'm sure those planning commissions heard from neighbors too, so they kind of pushed it, and the developer able to get the rezoning, was able to increase the brick to go up on it. But, 50 to 75%, I think is a pretty common range on that. I don't think where we're at now is unreasonable, but if we did want to go up, I think that would be, fair. And if that's the deal, if this board is going to be expecting that, I think we define those expectations. Because if they want to come in and not do that, then I can just be like, you're pretty much wasting your time if you come in and don't. I always tell people, you got to wow the planning commission, and when they don't, we kind of see, y'all aren't too thrilled about seeing it. But that's always what, push for what you all expect up front when people are doing their research to see if they even want to look at come here or not. So,
Could you get us some of Gallatin, Hendersonville, where they're at in their zoning policies so we can compare? I know up in Gallatin, my place, we had to be all brick on commercial or stone. That was the option.
and a lot on planning development, is it a planning development type?
Uh-huh.
A lot of time that's negotiated with the project designs. Yeah, I can
No
get you that.
negotiated. It
Yeah.
had to be, so.
Yeah. Hendersonville had design guidelines before Goodlettsville. I remember when they did theirs. It was several years before, but yeah, I can, if you want to see that. But in talking to in a group of Sumner County planners, that they were in the 75 to 80% range. What was pretty common, what it seemed like people were asking for. The big deal, ours, is we don't consider the cement fiberboard masonry, which some cities do. You can go out Long Hollow Pike, that project out there in Beach, Sumner County. Of course, they have planning development stuff too, and they kind of negotiate when they come in also. But, those homes, some of them are 100% brick, and some of them are probably 90% cement fiberboard. Because some cities do consider the fiberboard masonry kind of construction. It really depends on the look of the neighborhood. Like I said, the one at West Haven in Franklin, if y'all been there, it's immaculate. Some of those are clapboard homes, but it's the look on some of those they were going for.
Adam, I know you have a lot going on, but based on what I think has been discussed here, and I apologize, I just got back in. If we could create a chart of what the other cities do based upon what the type of building is, kind of a side-by-side comparison and have that for these guys. And it doesn't have to be you that does it. It just, we could come up with that, and that way. And one thing from an administration side, and I know this is tough to do, but I'd really love to get away from a case-by-case evaluation of what is permitted and not permitted, because it just creates so many different things, and people keep coming back wanting to change it. I think it's just a matter of knowing up front what's going to be required and no variance from it myself.
Let me ask you this on the other cities. I mean, I know it sounds weird. Do you really care what other cities do? I mean, I'd rather you all be comfortable with what you want to see. I mean, you can see neighborhoods in other communities and know what, there's different reasons why they look what they
Right.
do.
I'd like to see it because I'm on the other scale. I'd like to see 100% brick, basically. So, before I go too far, what is everybody else doing so that we don't get way out in left field? But that's just me.
So, to Tim's point, if the straight zoning code was clear and straightforward, and we could get most people to utilize the straight zoning code, that would be, I think, what Tim would like us to do, and I think that would make it easier, and I think that would be better. I think the reality is they come in with the PUD because it gives them more flexibility, and there's no penalty to go the PUD route. Like, we
I
don't.
mean, that's what we encourage with our comprehensive plan.
So the reality is, right now, it's always the carrot and stick, right? So if we're, the way the system is set up right now, we're basically giving them a carrot to come in and do the PUD, and we're hitting them with a stick if they don't. And we probably need to switch that and say, okay, no, we're going to give you a carrot if you come in and just straight zoning, make it work. If you want to go to the PUD, yeah, but we're going to hit you with some additional design requirements. We'll give you some flexibility, but we want something in return for that. Now, the reality is Sumner County, if I've heard it once, I've heard it a million times, Sumner County is complaining about the cities developing and their schools, their budget being hit for schools. And I don't know if there's anything that we can do in our ordinances, but I would like, if we're really thinking through this, I would like staff to figure out if there is some other thing that we can do. Right now, it seems like everything we are developing is meant to bring more families to Goodlettsville. Now, I love families. I love families. But that is a burden on our school system. And if there are 55-plus communities, maybe, that could be included in our zoning code, so that there's a way to maybe incentivize retirees to come to Goodlettsville and invest and be here and not be additional kids to our school systems, that may be something worth looking at. We have a couple of subdivisions that we looked at, and we're all demanding these gigantic square footages. Well, the only people that can move into a gigantic square footage is a family. We've completely eliminated anybody else from coming into our city. And I don't really understand why. But we're with these minimum square footages, it's got to be big, it's got to be huge, it's got to be all this stuff. And okay, well, then if that's what we want, okay, I'm just telling you that's what we're doing. So maybe that is what we want, maybe we're making a mistake, but that's what we're doing. So I would like to, honestly, I would like to be educated on how our developments do affect the counties. Because I honestly don't know. I don't know what tax revenue they get from our developments and then what burdens we're adding to them. I don't really know that. I don't know how that works. And I'd like to know that.
I mean, they pay a county property tax even in their city, and that's the burden would be your school system, but that's assuming every unit built has kids in it.
Well, if everything we're demanding is a house that's only going to be built or bought by a family, we're making that happen.
Well, Mr. Parnell, I don't disagree with you. However, I do disagree with you because the city of Goodlettsville is not the root of that issue. There's nothing that has been built here that's created an undue burden on the populace of the schools. So I guess my question is, there's not a good answer to it. I don't guess there's a question. I guess the statement is, at what point is it punitive to Goodlettsville for not growing if it's a smart project? And I mean a smart project, not just something that we, allowed. Or do we sit back and let everyone else blow by us? And that's, I ask it kind of as a question and a statement because I don't have an answer to it right now. And you asking how much that cost is something that I hear it all the time. I know they get adequate facilities tax for construction, but I don't know how that whole number plays out.
Just to add to what we talked about, and Mr. Parnell, I agree and disagree with you too also. I don't know that I disagree with you, but I know one particular project that went months and we ended up voting it down out Long Hollow Pike. It was a retirement community, or that's what the way we're shooting for, was a retirement community. I myself, I just voted that down. I thought that was the wrong place for that particular community. But I think that, now I'm speaking of what I guess the citizens have told me over the past few months, and maybe, and it's my thoughts too, but I think in the past, the city has allowed a developer to come in just because they checked all the boxes. And I think that has, at times, maybe not always ended up being a positive growth for us. I don't know that we've covered this yet, but just like behind us here in Parkview, the parking on the streets, it's just a lot of people don't mind it, but there's a lot of people who would rather not see it. And I can just speak for myself, as a first responder, it's hard to get to a scene when you got cars parked on both sides of the road without hitting cars, but I just think I agree. I guess I would be with Mr. Barnfield, is that I think we need to make it clear, but I would like to see our standards raised. And I will add one more thing. Somebody said, well, if you make your standards too high, you may cut down development. I don't know if that's a bad thing. That way we're in charge of what we allow to come into the city, instead of just because we've got boxes to be checked. We don't have any other option but to approve it. So that's my 5 cents worth.
Yeah, and our comprehensive plan does encourage new development, plan new development. It's just, a lot of communities, that's where they kind of went. Metro does that special district now. It's kind of that plus some. Kind of what you're going to see on the Metro side of Rivergate is going to be that. So we'll keep going. But yeah, I can put together some charts, but if you all feel comfortable with the 75 to 80%, I definitely think that's something residential. These are just, the city of Goodlettsville, we do have our current requirements, sidewalks both sides, do the big 24-inch rolled curbs, we do a 3-inch binder. So there is a lot of cost to building Goodlettsville development, and as y'all have heard, when you do require that, the higher brick percentage, that is a cost on those homes and the square footage. Mr. Pernell is right. Number 6, we've talked about this, the minimum level of commercial component required with mixed-use developments. In the regional center, I feel like we did this a couple years ago. In the regional center along Rivergate Parkway and intersections within 500 feet, we require a minimum 51% of that ground floor to be commercial. Really, our RC1 is pretty much gone now. if the mall redevelopment goes, that's where our RC1 was. So I don't really think the the regional center, I feel like we do require a commercial component with those. But our other planned unit developments, we don't. As we've seen on Conference Drive, North Main Street, when those projects come in, we require a certain level of commercial. Really depending on the location, but we don't have anything defined on that. I know there's been questions, we want to see more commercial. So a suggestion would be that we do for 10,000 square feet of commercial for 100,000 square feet of residential, with a minimum 10,000 square feet we'd want to see on mixed-use projects. So, typical apartment project's going to be several 100,000 square feet. So the one we saw on Conference Drive a couple months ago down there at Windsor Green, like on that scenario, that we would require probably a minimum 30,000 square foot commercial. That'd be expected if they want to try to do mixed use. We don't have anything on that outside of the regional center at this point. So that's definitely something. I thought of it might kind of help us with that. And we'll identify with our comprehensive plan where we want to see even provisions for people to request mixed use. Kind of preliminary, I'm thinking we got our commercial core overlay. It's pretty dense, big area. And then we got our mall area. I almost think those are our key areas going forward for where we really should promote more your high density. But that was just kind of the summary. Was there any thought? I know Mr. Bonford and I have talked about looking at a higher brick percentage. And my goal was to have this on the agenda for next month, but if we want to have more information next month to come up with a scenario, we can look at that. So,
How busy is next month?
right now, Prevost, they're looking at doing a small building addition, some minor site work. We're going to have another ordinance on like adult oriented businesses, some things to clean up on that, and then we're going to have this. So we really don't have next month on the agenda a lot. So, but any thoughts on? I mean, some of this, the garage. I know we talked about the materials.
I mean, my thought on the front-loaded garages would be a lesser percentage.
Okay.
And have them not at the entrance, have them on the back side of any unit to where that's not the first thing you see, per se, so.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of thinking reducing that square footage or the percentage allowance. Because there's going to be some circumstance in a project,
Sure.
steep slopes or something, so.
But if you put it towards the back of that development, it's a lot less eyesore and people having to drive around as many cars and stuff.
How do y'all feel about those recessed fronts? Do you still want to have that as an option? Now, they're different. They're going to be front load. The garage door is going to face directly to the street, but it's going to be in blind the front of the house.
That's still the same thing as a front load garage, isn't it?
Yes, over on Terra Lane, they have some front
They're recessed, yeah.
and courtyards.
Correct.
The courtyards look a lot better, but, I mean, maybe,
Part of what might do on that recessed front, maybe push that dimension further back and define a minimum. Because I've had want to do a front porch, then push it back. Oh, we want to, on a 60-foot house, the goal would be that the rest of that 40-foot where the garage is back, be out front, so.
We're still talking a percentage of front loader be okay in subdivisions, is that correct?
Yeah, talk about reducing that from 33 down, maybe to 10, 15%, so.
So if we talk about recessed garages, that's what you call it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so is it going to be a certain footage?
Right now, it's got to be 10 foot back from the front of the house.
Okay,
But we could increase that
okay.
if we want to allow those. I mean, we take them out. It just gives some design options. And what that really does, it allows some narrower lots. One, to incorporate, we require 4 off-street parking now. So,
Right.
like on Goodlettsville 56, that's what they use on Goodlettsville 56, the smaller lots. Because they were trying to cluster around steep slopes. That's one thing about Goodlettsville. A lot of our properties limiting. But they were able to do a smaller lot, and they recessed the front back, and they were able to put the 4 off-street parking also.
It seems if you had the recessed garage, that would make your garage that much shorter. So, which
It could.
may defeat the purpose,
Well, those on Terra Lane, I mean, it doesn't, their garages are still, I'm just kind of, they're still well enough room for 2 cars and front to back. So I think the house itself just goes deeper.
And it really just affects the layout of the lot. It pushes that garage back, so in the backyard, it creates a different.
Maybe an offset.
But, you know, I know working in White House and I was on the planning commission there, they went to a minimum front setback is larger. And what it is, these developments come in, they got little bitty backyards. So I was trying to, you know, to get our goals of what the garages look like, but still allow backyards, people have pools and. I'll rearrange the front load. I could see recessed front, limited percentage of them, but maybe we consider those part of the front loaded. Especially, you know, the last development we saw, the goal was to have the wider lots. So, you know, how you do your garage is going to affect those wider lots. So, what about the uses? Was there any kind of uses that stood out for you in those districts that y'all want to coming forward, maybe not want to see in those districts?
I've said it on this board many times, I am not a fan of 2 units on one lot. I don't understand the benefit of it. If we want to create a 0 lot line situation where 2 units do share a wall on the lot line, I'm okay with that. But from a legal standpoint, and I'm not a lawyer, thank God, nobody wants me to be, but from a legal standpoint, it seems like we're creating havoc, putting 2 houses and 2 owners on one lot when there's no need to do it. Just split the lot in half and call it done. I don't get the benefit of it. And they're all over Nashville. I bless Nashville's heart. They're going to be, that's going to be a nightmare. But I don't know why we would do that. I feel like if we're going to allow that, just create a 0 lot line and half the lot. But I don't think we have that in our code right now.
The horizontal property, it's provision of state law. But 0 lot line, yeah, we would prevent those. In the
Okay.
planning development only.
In a plan unit development only.
Graves will be that way.
Okay, but do we have any zoning codes? Like in Nashville, the RS only allow 1 house, but the R5, R10, R15, so you can build 2. And then there's the horizontal property regime.
My understanding of state law, and Russell, I'll talk about this, we can regulate the type of unit on a lot. The ownership of it is not really, like if we allow a duplex, if someone, you know, it's 2 units and someone wants to split that ownership, then I don't think by law we can really prevent them from doing that. It's like a condo style ownership. We can regulate the use.
Okay, so then,
I mean, a lot of that's just because residential's so expensive that I think that's why a lot of you see in East Nashville.
yeah. But why even then bother doing a duplex, I guess? I don't know.
Well, duplex you can still own. A lot of people own duplexes and rent them.
Okay, but put each one on its own lot with a 0 lot line.
Yeah, but what about all these skinny lots where you're going to have a house in the front and a house in the back? You only have room for 1 driveway. That's where a lot of it comes into play, isn't it? How do you dance around that?
I mean, basically, it's just non-public maintenance. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I hope people realize what they're buying into, because they're buying into little condos. They're mini little condo units.
I can assure you they don't know what they're buying into. They don't.
On a duplex type situation like that, you have one side red shutters, one side blue shutters, and different colored gutters.
In the planning development, I mean, it depends on the design. I mean, I think the ones on Willis Branch, that's, I guess, what gives their great look, because they are a little different. I mean, but that, to me, when I look at those, I don't see a duplex, because I know how they're owned. To me, a duplex is someone owns it to rent it.
Yeah, Willis Branch, they have a HOA that's pretty stringent that dictates a lot of that, I believe.
When I think of duplex, I'm thinking of these ranch-style houses, you know, 1 story and, you know,
That's your typical, yeah. We're seeing them stack now. It really, the fire ratings are unreal to do that. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I think they're more rented property than owned.
Well, and even the tall, Mr. Parnell, again, even the tall and skinnies in the metropolitan area, I don't know in percentage, but the interaction I've had, they're young professionals that are moving in. Some of them, it may be their first home, but they're still paying up in $600,000-$700,000 for one. So I think it's just a matter of a developer can get two on one lot, he gets it, and people are happy to have a place to live.
And the history of all that, have you ever seen those old lots in East Nashville that were platted in the early 1900s, 1920s? You know, in the 40s and 50s, when they built your typical ranch suburban homes, you know, they were built across 5 lots. And we got some of these on 2 Mile Park the same way. So what they figured out, those are still lots under it. When they tore down those old buildings, there's 5 lots there. Well, they had to redesign the houses to fit on, 40-foot lots from the early 1900s, back when there was no garages. Back when houses could be smaller. So. But yeah, I mean, in the planning development, we can definitely encourage ownership. We always say, one of y'all usually asks that. Is this going to be for sale or rented? The tricky part of that is they can still set up on lots and one person own it all. One person can own 20 lots in a development. So
I guess it's the verbiage in some of those zoning codes that's 1 or 2 family. And
it's common, yeah.
I don't know why we allow 2 family on 1 lot. I don't know why we do that. If we want 2 houses there, just make 2 lots. It sounds simple to me. It's clearly not.
I mean, it's just, some people prefer it to be, one ownership. It really just depends. I really think that's why duplexes are what they are, because the majority of them are rented. In this area, I'm sure other parts of the country are different, but we could put something in there about, encourage. I don't know, Russell, something we can talk about. I don't think we can say they can't fully, because by state law, we can't deny somebody a condo style of ownership, because we got a lot of commercial buildings that are condo. Even on like Meadowlark, some of those little buildings, they're condo style ownership. There's one on Rivergate Parkway where they're building a hotel there. And then the horizontal property, by state law, if they meet these conditions, they're allowed to do it. And they do like a master deed development. It's just a form of private ownership, really, but. Yeah, I know Metro did change their rules. Scott told me to be quiet earlier, so I'm gonna. We ain't got time to talk about all that stuff. So.
We talk about these, and this might be a stupid question. Are we talking about new builds only?
In our planning developments, it will be. That's correct.
So we're just talking about this being,
Primarily, yeah.
so somebody could take their existing home and turn it to, because we've had that happen a couple of times.
Yeah, because some of our property sizes, yeah, in our zoning.
So they can do that?
In certain zone districts, R15 is a big one. Like you say, these old 2-acre lots. On 2 Mile, there's some properties like that. The lots are 40,000 square feet zoned to R15, so by our ordinance, they can tear that one down, make it into 2. So, but that's different. That's our base zone. But planning developments, it's going to be a master plan based project. You're going to know what the intention is going forward. And all these are reaction to the moratorium. We felt like that was part of it. So, but what we'll do next month, I'll just bring it back as a discussion. I'll give you a chart showing what some other cities do. But if there's anything, y'all can contact me, of course. I can put on the agenda. So, our goal is still have these way before December, the moratorium ends. So. And I always tell people, if they come in with a planning development, they're asked for a lot of changes, that's usually a kiss of death for them. So we try to always encourage them to meet our rules, of course. So this will be helpful when we get what we expect going forward. I think it'll weed out people maybe you all don't even want to waste your time with. So. We officially adjourned.